Evening all on PlayChess.com and Twitch TV. I thought this week there's some very interesting games being played in the World Cup. Just get rid of echo, pardon me. So some very interesting games in the World Cup held in Norway, Tromso, Norway, and you know, some very interesting upsets actually as well, because you have a huge range of ratings in this knockout tournament. 128 players. So, and if there's a tie, there's tie breaks. And here is one of the early surprising tie breaks. Anna Ushenina, she is 2500, an ex. Actually, should I say ex? She's. I think actually she's the current women's world champion. I should know that. Can someone correct me if I'm wrong? Anna Ushenina is the current women's world champion, and she's playing Peter Svidler, and this was just yesterday's game in the Grunfeld, and it's been talked about a lot, so I thought I should make this the very first game to check out. Okay, so Anna playing white. Anna kicked off with d4, and Peter Svidler is an expert with the Grunfeld defense, so he does play knight f6 after c4 g6 after knight c3 d5, signifying the Grunfeld defense. And this is going to be a very complex tactical encounter, but has she prepared something against Peter Svidler? So let's see. She goes c takes d5, knight takes e4, standard stuff so far. Knight takes c3, b takes c3, and black tries to exert a lot of pressure now on the centre and to strike at the centre with c5. So one of the key ideas is to maximise the power of this bishop along this diagonal, and white's often trying to preserve the centre and maybe get some chances later either in the centre or against the king side sometimes. So let's see, knight f3, c5, and now rook b1, getting out of the way on this diagonal, putting some pressure on the queen side, trying to inhibit the movement of this bishop on b7. Black castles, and now bishop e2. And in this position, actually, one of the slight issues with rook b1 is this a2 pawn is a bit loose, and in fact it's picked up here. This is a very sharp theoretical line. It has all been played before. Black plays c takes, and now queen a5 check, so targeting that poor a2 pawn. There's a pawn sack, bishop d2. So why do players with white want to play like this, to sacrifice the a2 pawn here? Well, the queen's slightly misplaced. The centre is intact here. There's still pressure on the b file. The a pawn is often vulnerable anyway, it's just an isolated pawn. Why not get rid of it to try and improve the position of the pieces? In the long run, of course, black's maybe going to queen the a pawn in the long run, but it's a long way away. Before the endgame, the gods, as they say, have placed the middle game. So what happens here now for white to generate good play for the pawn? Well, white castles, and bishop g4 is now offering this pawn in order to put pressure on d4. Peter Svidler is offering b7 here, but d4, it has to be protected, and it's protected with bishop g5, so still maintaining the threat potentially of rook b7, but also bishop e7 now. We see h6, and here actually it's not really one of the main ideas actually was just to protect the pawn like this, because bishop e7 here, I think actually this is running into trouble, too much pressure. The bishop just drops back actually to e3, so basically saying to black, well, can you go and protect b7 now? d4 is like intact, although one is a pawn down, there's a bit of pressure here, but a dynamic move, knight c6 is played, so still with b7 an issue, but d4 again an issue because of this pressure of all these pieces on d4. So we see d5, knight a5 now protects b7, rook e1, Now bishop takes f3 voluntarily, just to get access to this c4 square, to swing the knight to c4, which seems quite a menace in some respects. The bishop gets out of the way, and now things really sharpen up here. Amazing, an amazing concept here. Because it looks as though, you know, if black's given time, well, black seems to have a very pleasant position. No, these pieces are all very nice. The queen's not going to be trapped or anything. But e5 is played, and here we have it. This really shocked me. This position, but I think it was all preparation. D takes e6. F takes e6, and it looks as though this bishop's hanging on f4. But can you guess what white plays here? So the bishop's hanging. What would you play here with white? If I give you 20 seconds starting from now. Okay, I think this is preparation. This has to be computer generated, this continuation, not just because of rook takes b7, but what's coming up next. Now if rook takes f4, this is simple to digest. I think that queen d7 is really dangerous here on g7 and h7, and there's no defense. These pieces are not helping the king here. So black's going to get mated, you know, like this. So that's not too difficult to digest. But what is a little bit more subtle is what happens after rook ad8. Now in this position we still have this bishop hanging. So what would you play in this position if I give you 20 seconds starting from now? Okay, you might think, well, queen c1 might be necessary to hold the bishop, but there's actually a really clever resource which is actually rook d7 here, and there's something very interesting about this. So clearly you can't take, you know, the rook, so rook takes, queen takes, and the question is why Peter Svidler would not take the bishop here now on f4. So that's the big question. Let's see this. If rook takes f4, check, and say the king moves, what could white play in this position? So white's a whole piece down, but there is a move here to make sure getting the piece back. What would be the best way to celebrate the pin on c4? Okay, there's only one way of celebrating the pin, not bishop e2. You know, we've got things like queen d2. Whoops, queen d2, end of game. So it has to be another way, and it's rook c1. And here, you know, it turns out that black, even though a spare move, can't seem to do anything of great significance here. So this is just a side variation of the game, but black really hasn't got anything of significance. The e2 square is locked out with the bishop. Okay, there's no sack on f3, which is helpful here, because always queen takes c4 anyway. as well. So if we go back, this is perhaps why Peter Svidler played knight e5 here. So he didn't touch the bishop on f4. So knight e5. Now this is taken, given black this seemingly opposite coloured bishops can be dangerous for the attacking player. And we see a rather defensive looking, timid looking move. Rook f1. Now h5, which looks more aggressive in nature. And now we see a clever neat move again, bishop e2. So the idea is to distract the queen for queen e6 to take here. And if we take here, we've got queen e6 check, and then we can take on e5. So bishop e2 aims potentially to put the bishop here if it's supported one day, but at the moment it's far off. Rook f7, but not so far off now. Check, queen c6. And we have this idea that bishop c4 now supported by the queen, and still queen e2, queen e6 to win the bishop here. So bishop d4 now is played, and things get really interesting. There seems to be full coordination of 3 pieces here on f2. 3 pieces, yet white now plays bishop c4, and Svidler plays what seems to be a fantastically clever move in this position. So he's got this full coordination on f2 here, and he plays actually rook takes f2. So one of the ideas of rook takes f2, so let's imagine just a simple approach. Bishop takes, check, and we pick up the queen. And this should be okay for black. And he's got the outside pass pawn here, and e6 is protected. So that's no good for white. So queen takes e6 was played, even in the face of this really big danger. Queen e6 check. King h7, which now means queen g8 can be answered with king h6. This doesn't seem a big deal. The bishop on d4 is actually protecting h8. But even so, remember the queen's hanging here, so I guess even this kind of position is possible. Or it's just losing actually the bishop here, so that's a bishop up for black. So that's not too hot. What happens here is actually white has a really clever idea. Again, if taking the queen just like this, then check would win back the queen. The king moves, rook takes. No, it's more than rook takes. It's rook takes here, mating. Pardon me. It's rook takes there, mating. Not taking the queen, because you're up a rook down. So this is the point. The point is that rook f6 check, or anywhere along the f file, even rook f3, anywhere along the f file. No, sorry. I've just realised something. I should have looked at this more closely. Rook f6 has to be played, because if you play rook f3, white actually plays rook f2 here. And so this is not so hot. So the way to play this is rook f6 check. So if rook f2, then I think we can play bishop takes f2 check, and then take here, and that's okay. So I think it has to be rook f6 check to be okay here. So if king h1, it's mating white, and if rook f2, we take. Okay. But the point now, something really clever. This is a really crafty game. What white actually plays to get out of this nastiness. So it looks as though rook f6 is quite a neat trick, but white actually plays queen d7 check. And here, actually, it turns out that the discovered check from black doesn't really help. the reason the discover check doesn't help, so it's check. So if check here now, check, white can actually play here. I hope I'm getting this right. Queen takes d4. Queen takes d4. And I think this is winning for white. Does anyone want to disagree that this is winning for white? This position. You've got 20 seconds to disagree or not, or agree. So I'll give you 20 seconds now just to make sure, a sanity check, that this whole combination by white refuted Peter Svidler's concept. I believe this is the position. There's no resource here for black. Okay, so what we saw here was interesting stuff. So getting the bishop to c4 like this in the face of rook takes f2. So Peter Svidler should have actually played bishop takes f2 apparently, and he would have been okay. He would have been okay. This is a very complex game. The Ushenina against Peter Svidler in the World Cup, just played yesterday. It's a very, very new game, hot off the press. Okay, so Peter Svidler lost in his pet Grunfeld defense. So let's have a look at another game from the World Cup. I'm not entirely sure I want to play that one, but I guess we can go ahead anyway. Let's try this one for size. Okay, so Alejandro Ramirez against Evgeny Tomashevsky. Okay, so knight f3 from Ramirez. Evgeny plays d5, so we see d4 c6, c4 e6, queen c2, Catalan kind of position. Bishop g5, b5, queen drops back, bishop b7, knight bd2, a6, e3, knight bd7. It looks fairly standard sort of Catalan stuff for the moment. So a4, rook c8, and white plays the solid bishop e2. So white's developed quite naturally. Black's perhaps looking forward at some point to c5. For the moment plays bishop b4. White castles, queen b6. So this c5 to liberate the bishop was one of the main things, I think, to try and fully equalize. White often tries to dissuade black from playing for c5, so knight b3 trying to get a binds on c5 in particular. But c5 is played now in any case, and it looks as though well, white's got the ready-made punishment, because white's put pressure on c5 here and also has the option for bishop f6. And you might think, well, bishop f6, knight f6, and then we're on c5 here. But we see here bishop takes f6, g takes f6, accepting double pawns. If knight takes f6 had been played, then maybe this is slightly annoying for black. This position for d takes, you know, maybe a5 for example is slightly annoying, or there even another possibility might exist, like rook c1, getting a lot of pieces for the queen potentially. If the bishop went back here, maybe something like this is on the cards. You know, clear out of the whole back row. So is c5 being, you know, discouraged? Well, black played g takes f6, so this knight is helping again, you know, with c5. So we see d takes c5, knight takes c5, ab, so that a file's blasted open, knight bd4, and black seems to be playing dynamically. You know, king e7. You know, didn't Vichy Anand play a bit like this against Kramnik in the World Championship match a few years back? So king e7, it looks very dynamic play. You know, black solved the problem piece, and you know the rooks, you know, potentially the g file. Doesn't it look rosy? Well, knight takes b5 is played. Now bishop takes f3 forces g takes, because the bishop's holding on to b5 here. So g takes, rook hd8, check, knight d7. Now queen e4 is played, so it's on the bishop here. Bishop c5. b4, a forcing move. Bishop d6. Rook b7, another forcing move. And actually, I'm not entirely sure. I should have really shown you this game. It's just because it was a shortish game that I'm showing you it. Really, it's not the most amazing game ever in the world, but there's a neat little final move here. Queen c6. So white to play and win. If I give you 20 seconds starting from now, what would you play as white? Which did cause resignation. So 20 seconds starting from now. Anyone? White to play? Forcing move? Forcing moves often win games. It's not knight takes d6, Pat MC. I'm not sure why you think knight takes d6. Why are people saying knight takes d6? Followed by rook d1. Ah. Interesting. That's interesting. That does look good. No, but in the game actually knight a7 was played. That looks quite simple. What does the queen do? You know, if takes, we play check. It's check. The king on e7. Check. We just won the exchange. Very clear-cut win of the exchange. So that just caused resignation. Actually, the exchange up, pass pawn, that's enough. So knight a7 is the move I was looking for anyway. So it was just a short game. It wasn't particularly brilliant. Okay, so let's move on. So now here is a player I've seen in real life. He came and swept up everyone in the London Classic FIDE Open in December, a couple of years back. Ludvig Hammer. So if you thought it was just Carlsen from Norway, who's really good, think again. Ludvig Hammer is really strong Norway player. So against Sergei Movsian, let's have a look at his game. d4, knight f6, c4 e6, knight c3. He invites Nimzo Injin. So Hammer playing whites. So knight f3, b6, e3, Rubinstein style. So bishop b7, bishop d3, both sides now castle. d5, c takes, e takes, a3, bishop drops back. And again, black's got this idea of c5 maybe. White tries to clamp down and dissuade black from playing for c5, because we'd have takes and maybe rook b1 and pressure on b7 and stuff like that. So knight bd7, rook b1, really trying to dissuade black from playing c5. c6 is played. And now there's a big decision here which looks to be quite controversial. Does white want to have an isolated queen's pawn by playing the move e4 here? Now if you don't play the move e4, maybe black's going to tighten the grip on your c4 square. Black might be playing for b5, knight b6, c4 if you're not careful, or even tighten the grip on e4. So it's interesting that e4 was played immediately. Okay, so we've got the isolated queen's pawn. That's taken, takes, knight takes, bishop takes, and we see this move h6, which takes away the g5 square, of course, from these two pieces. Okay, so knight g5s might have been annoying or something. Now we see b5, using that pin, putting pressure on c6 immediately. Queen c7, and now a really interesting move. And I did a bit of engine checking earlier just to make sure what was going on. I didn't really find any clear conclusion about this move being that brilliant for some reason. Maybe I've missed something, but can you guess what Hammer played in this position in any case? So if I give you 20 seconds starting from now, can you guess what White played? I don't know, it was like a shocking move. I'll try to engine check it at a certain level. I don't know really, I'm not sure what's going on. It wasn't d5, no, it was just bishop takes h6. So he's quickly vacating the c1 square, it seems, to make b take c more effective, because then we'd have a pin on the bishop. Okay, so now, you know, imagine g takes h6 is played though, and you know, when I put this into an engine just to check this concept, it seems black has time to play rook e8 here, and then like move the knight, for example. I'm not entirely sure what, you know, the concept really was. I'm pretty sure that there must be a concept behind it. Maybe it wasn't to do with rook c1, but you know, if queen d2 we can play surely bishop f4. The engine actually gives it, I mean, at the depth I looked at it, the engine was indicating this might be a bit unsound, this bishop takes h6. You know, I could give you lot 20 seconds if you want to see, you know, does White have anything clear cut here? I couldn't find anything myself, and that was checking with an engine actually, so feel free to check with an engine as well if you got one and you can get this position. In fact, I'll give you the fen string. If I can give a fen string, no I can't, no I can't, can I? There it is on Twitch anyway. If I give you the fen string here, nope, this is not pasting in. Okay, so I don't know what the idea was. It's a practical game. Maybe it was actually played today. Maybe it's just a blitz move or something. It's in tiebreak. If it's been played today, I think it might have been one of the tiebreak games. So maybe it doesn't matter if it's accurate or not. It just puts black under pressure. So anyway, in the game it seems black got a bit panicky and just played c takes b5. Okay, so we have bishop takes b7, and now the bishop is left there to be sacrificed with rook takes b5, and it starts to make a lot more sense here that this rook can swing across now. G takes queen c1, and there's no bishop f4 clearly, the queen's not on c7. So the queen is coming very dangerously now into the position. So queen takes h6, and it all looks really like rosy now, you know, with rook g5. It looks really, really dangerous now. So it all seems to have worked out anyway. Bishop f4, queen h4, f5, and now it looks as though, okay, that this rook is not participating, but it's now rook e1 is now threatening rook e7 to get into h7. And here black has to give back some material, I think, otherwise he's getting really done over. You know, say queen d3. No, actually the rook can't come in because of the back row at the moment. Actually just queen takes f4, even better. Just queen takes f4. So actually black played bishop takes h2 check here. So something's gone wrong for black. This isn't a good position. Rook e7 now, threatening mate. Knight f6, queen h6, rook a e8, rook takes a7, rook f7, rook takes f7, king takes, check, king g8. Now queen g6 check is winning material. So king moves and we're going to take on f6 with check. So there's no time for black to exploit this. We're going to take with check. So that was an interesting game. Perhaps shouldn't be taken too seriously for analytical purposes, though, if it was a tiebreak game. So moving on. So Korobov against Vasiv. So Anton Korobov, and this was played apparently today as well. So Vasiv Durabali plays a we're going to a Queen's engine defense, and now transposing back into a Nimzo engine. So it's a kind of, I don't know, some variation of Nimzo engine. Looks like Rubinstein now. So black doubles the pawns, knight e4, and this is like a traditional grip on e4. So black often following up rook f6, and often sometimes, you know, maneuvers like this are very aggressive, using that advanced knight on e4 to spearhead an attack. So knight e1, and we see f5. So is black going to, you know, play this routine kind of attacking system? Well, white now kicks the knight immediately, f3. It now plays knight c2, queen e8, a4, knight c6, rook b1, d6, as though black's interested now in maybe at some point g6 for e5, pardon me, e4, although this is weakening some squares, so that has to be done with caution. So queen e2, queen h5, discouraging e4 from white, because we've got f takes, we're using this pin here. So actually white plays c5, d takes, d takes, which gives black the e5 square. This has taken away some central control here, and black pounces in with knight e5. On the other hand, the d4 square is available, and knight d4. So on e6 now, this is uncomfortable pressure on e6, but giving up the light square bishop. So knight takes d3, queen takes d3, rook ad8, and now the queen just drops back to e2. Okay, knowing of course, you know, this guy, you know, we can take here all the time. So rook fe8, c6, bishop goes back. Now knight b5, so double attacking these two pawns. Bishop a6 pinning the knight. c4 unpinning and now threatening again, whoops, threatening these two pawns again. Queen f7. Bishop b2, a very nice bishop though on the dark squares, very nice across there. e5, which gives up a little bit control of the d5 square. So rook bd1, white serves attention here on the d file. Rook a8, finally protecting that measly a7 pawn. But now f4, and this bishop is really looking powerful on the diagonal. Okay, and there's a really neat trick coming up in this game. E takes f4, rook takes f4. Okay, there looks to be unpleasant pressure on these two. Bishop takes b5 for a moment, a takes, and now knight h5. So seemingly, okay, kicking back the rook. Does that solve the problem of the pressure here? This bishop looks absolutely fantastic. a6, rook d7 looks really dangerous, and it's only the queen and knight really protecting g7 here. Can you guess? Not quite yet. Let's play. So rook takes c7, and now black tries to make use of this position of the queen with f4, and it's here after f4 that's a bit pushing black's position a bit too hard. It's expecting a bit too much from the black position. There's a slight weakness of the last move created with f4. which is picked up on spectacularly by white. I think I've given a bit of a clue there. So white to play and win. What was the final move of this game if I give you 20 seconds starting from now? Right, so Matt, Mark, Pat, yeah, well done. Pat, MC, Alex, everyone is getting this one. Yeah, forcing move. Queen takes h5, and black had to resign. So why? Because queen takes h5, forcing move. Rook takes g7. Now, if king h8, we just play. Well, remember, black's got potential e5 defense, so I'll go with rook g5 here, just to block the queen out from e5. So this is now mating, whatever happens. And the other way to look at it is if king f8, then just rook takes f4, and the rooks are coordinating very nicely. So that's mating as well, of course. So nice move there. I think this was a blitz. If this was played today, it might have been a blitz game. I should have really checked the time control. Sorry about that. But maybe, you know, the more fun games are often the faster time controls. So anyway, does anyone know what the tie-break time limit is? Is it rapid? Because this was definitely a tie-break game today. Was it yesterday? Nope, it was on the 11th. So Adams against Yungbo Wang now. So Adams is one of my favourite grandmasters, actually, believe it or not. So there are several reasons why Adams is one of my favourite grandmasters. I played him in the Lloyds Bet Masters once. That was an amazing experience. I really enjoyed losing that game because it was really elegant. His actual positional play was really elegant. Oh, it was amazing. And you know, he just, the way he was playing, beating up all the GMs and IMs on the UK circuit, was that there was something more to chess. It wasn't just about calculation. There's intuition, there's feel for positions, and he would just effortlessly glide the pieces, you know, just stylishly, just, you know, just beating all these players, and amazing. So anyway, so against Yungbo Wang, e4, we saw a French defense, e6, and in the Tarrasch, Adams's record must be stronger than Fischer's against the French defense. In fact, just researching this today, apparently, you know, statistically, the French defense was Bobby Fischer's worst opening to face, and in particular the winnower. Maybe Fischer should have taken up the Tarrasch, because in the Tarrasch, Michael Adams's record is absolutely phenomenal. I think it must be the top record of any GM. You know, Tarrasch for Adams, fantastic. So c5, it looks to be the energetic try to play c5 for piece play, accepting potentially an isolated queen's pawn. But there's another way for black to play it, which is to keep the structure intact, to avoid the dreaded isolated queen's pawn, to play queen takes d5 here. So d takes, which seems to offer black, you know, an easy time developing the bishop in one go, but it's not so clear. So knight gf3, knight f6. There's a tempo to be gained anyway on the queen here. Bishop c4. The queen drops here to c6. So queen e2 now threatens, of course, bishop b5, skewering the queen. Now black doesn't actually castle here. Strangely, if black castled, maybe there's an annoying move available for white, but let's not get into that. Let's just stick to what happened. So a6, okay. So now knight b3, bishop d6, bishop g5, and black just plays knight bd7. Doesn't want double pawns. Another tempo on the queen, queen c7, but the king has been maybe a bit too long in the center here. So what does Adams play in this position? I wonder if you can guess if I give you 20 seconds starting from now. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just, you know, it's just asking for it. It's just asking for it. Knight takes e6. What else would you play here? You know, this king in the center looks terrible. So f takes e6, queen takes. Immediately we see, you know, this will be mated. The king will be mated on. It has to go to d8 or bishop e7. There's only two moves: king d8 or bishop e7. Black chooses bishop e7, and we see check. King d8, and now casting queenside, so pinning this knight. So is this a speculative piece sacrifice, or does it actually work? Well, surely white can maybe consider even queen g7 at some point, but even better, after rook f8, a really really powerful move here. So can you guess what white plays in this position? If I give you 20 seconds starting from now. No, it's not. I'm not. You know, I'm not entirely. Well, maybe it'll work. I don't know. I haven't engine checked it. But no, it's a very simple move. You don't have to sacrifice anything. Not really. You just play knight d4 here. This is a really menacing threat of check. So this is what happens. Rook takes. We play check. King 8. We can take the queen with check, and then we've got both rooks to take here as an option. King f8, take our pick. Take the one on f7 to start with. This is really quite convincing. This is really quite convincing, isn't it? And black plays rook a7. Oh dear, oh dear. Oh god. Bishop e6. So white's slightly better now, yeah? Because you see, look at these rooks in the centre. Look at these bishops and look at this knight. This position constitutes quite a big advantage for white. Oh dear. Sorry. Calm down. So what does black play here? Black plays b5. Yeah. So knight d5, knight b6. So that looks to be a tactical move on these two pieces, but doesn't really do much. Bishop takes f6. Black's going to be destroyed here. Well, black is already destroyed. After bishop takes c8, and black resigns here. Basically, you know, knight takes c8. What we do here, can you spot the final crushing move? In fact, it's too obvious, I'm not even going to ask you. Knight takes f6, and then we play rook d8 check, and we pick up this knight. So this didn't happen, but that's it. So that was quite a destruction job, and that's what happens when you leave the king, you know, too long in the center. So the king here was left too long in the center. We just saw, I mean, this seems logical to play bishop d6, but you know, the queen is quite a target here, and it's really all over after knight takes e6. Okay, so that's quite bad. So I mean, it just shows, you know, the fun of rapid chess. So knight d coming up after castles, knight d4. really quite a crushing game. I think this is the most brutal game actually. I know sometimes these games have an effect on me when they're like this, as you might notice. So I think this is the most brutal game I have to show. So anyway, but quite impressive, wasn't it? So check, and it was just a real demolition job, really. I mean, okay, so let's go on to another. Oh, sorry, a question. Queen e4, move 11. So bishop g5. You're saying queen e4. That's a spoil sport move, isn't it? That looks to be an improvement on the game, anyway. Bishop e3 to avoid the exchange of queens. Does anyone have an idea here? This spoils the fun, doesn't it? This suggestion, queen e4. Does anyone have an idea here for white? Maybe you want to keep the tension on with bishop e3. Yeah, I'm not sure it's entirely losing earlier on. Okay, so let's move on to another game. So Shirov against Yifan Hu, who was a former women's world champion. So this is an interesting game, I think. So Shirov 2696, he's under 2700 at the moment, against Yifan Hu 2609. So one of the highest rated female players on the planet, Yifan Hu. So d4, and she plays Nimzo Indian, or tries to. We get Queen's Indian, or now back to a Nimzo Indian. So Queen a4 check from Shirov. So knight c6, e3. Black castles, queen c2. So what's white achieved? Well, basically putting the knight on c6 means that, you know, this c pawn is blocked in, which is quite annoying, and which means the center is more stable. d4 is more stable. So d takes, bishop takes, but black can liberate with e5, which Yifan does. D takes, knight g4, white castles. So knight g takes e5. Knight takes, bishop drops back. So bishop g4, f3. Bishop drops back to d7. So is this slightly weak to cause f3, or is this bishop going to handle the dark square issues? a3, bishop d6. f4, knight c6. By the way, Shirov at the Lloydsbat Masters in the 90s, I saw him one year dominate the Lloydsbat Masters, and the next year Morozevich. So we had him dominating like just the year after or something. It was amazing to see these players in real life. So Lloydsbat Masters, genius. So, you know, his Fire on Board book, amazing annotations. I never really understood most of them, but they look amazing if you go through that book, Fire on Board. So so here, okay, so where's the fire on the board here? So what does he want to do? He wants to sort of get this bishop activated, perhaps against the king. That's an obvious plan. You know, it looks as though structurally, why is he giving himself this backward pawn? Well, it blunts out some squares from black, takes away these key squares, so it's not all bad. b4, and then he puts the bishop there. So we've got this beautiful bishop here, and we've got this d5 square, which it seems black has very little influence over at the moment, this d5 square with these bishops like this. So rook e8. And now this looks like a really aggressive direct move. Rook f3, just trying to swing the rook, you know, maybe to g7. And this is what I call fun chess. You know, just it looks boring before, and now it looks quite good fun. So rook e6, bishop d3, pointing at h7 now. So this is really getting to be an aggressive position. Rook h6, and now we see rook g3, so threatening things, you know, just to unleash the bishop here on g7. Bishop drops back, now knight d5, and that gives the c3 square, so we've got queen c3 coming up, so we can have like all of these pieces on g7 soon. Queen h4, and now this is the really funny thing. I think Shirov finds these possibilities which are absolutely amazing, and this demonstrates that. We see queen c3 offering h2, which you might think is not complete genius, but it's what happens after. So king f2, f6, and now this is absolutely brilliant. Can you guess what white plays in this position? But it's not just guessing the move, it's guessing the follow-up. So if you can guess the move, I'll give you 10 points. If you can't guess the follow-up, you might as well deduct 50 points. If you can get the follow-up as well, then add 50 points. So it really is important to have the follow-up here. What does white play in this position and why? So the important thing is why. So if I give you 20 seconds starting from now, can you spot the move and why? I think I'm going to have to make this easier. Okay, I think this is asking too much. Unless there is another continuation, which I'm not sure about. No, I don't think there is. I think it still relies, even with the bishop c4 check mentioned, I think it still relies on something here, which I think is difficult to fathom. So knight takes f6 check, rook takes f6. Well, I'm gonna break this down. Okay. Now, why is queen takes f6 losing here for white? So that's the question. Why would queen takes f6 be losing if I give you 20 seconds starting from now? What would black play here? Right. Black would play queen takes g3 check here, breaking the pin, so we can just take here. Now, given that's a slight snag, given queen takes g3 check is a slight snag, what would you play here with white to solve this queen takes g3 check? So white to play, what would you play in this position? 20 seconds starting from now. Yeah, now, can I just mention before I mention it that check, right? This again, you know, it doesn't quite work, does it? Because there's always queen g3 check here. This doesn't work because we've got g7. There's no mating with the two bishops. So the point is not bishop c4 check. The point is rook h1 to get the queen away from, so this pin can remain. Rook h1, and this is now really bad. So, you know, if queen takes, then queen takes f6, and this is really, you know, black has had it. What's this queen doing here? You know, it's hopeless. You know, we just take there. So the queen's ridiculous on h1. If we play g6, then I think then bishop c4 check. You know, there's no chance. So Yifan, who tried queen takes g3 check here, and obviously this is not very good for black. So check, And now after queen c2, actually, you know, she resigns here. It's not particularly good, I think, at all. Let's have a look concretely if black played on, say rook f7. I think this is still nasty because of check, and something like rook takes h6. It's still pretty nasty stuff with these bishops. So that was a pretty impressive game as well, I thought. It started off quietly and then got really quite exciting here. So this idea of, you know, I mean, this position doesn't look as though it's got so much attacking potential. But it does. It's got the seeds of a rook lift here, and this bishop, and you know, d5. All the ingredients came together. So rather impressive. And I think this is a really neat idea, this rook h1. So that's why I chose this game. What do you think? Do you think this game was pretty good? I hope so. So let's have a look at another game. So Ray Robson, he had his work cut out against another very strong GM. So Andrei Volodkin. So e4, and I'm starting to think, should I really go through this one? Probably. Okay. So e5, knight f3, knight f6. So Andrei Volodkin trying to play solidly with black. So white can try for a pressure here on this knight by trying to undermine d5. Okay, so knight c3, a3. This is all theory. Rook e1, rook e8, c takes, queen takes, bishop f4. So c7 is attacked. That's protected. Queen c1, bishop f6. And we see queen b2, knight a5. It gets interesting soon. Knight e5, bishop takes, queen b3. So the queens stay on because of queen d2. Knight c4, queen g5, threatening mate. Knight takes, but queen takes f5. So this knight is a bit of a pain. What to do with it? It goes to c4, queen c5, knight d6. So it still seems quite solid for black. Bishop g4. Is white really going to win the c7 pawn? Rook takes, b6. So the rook is refusing to move away from c7. But now things get really interesting. Queen c6, f5. And so Robson to play here. So what would you play as as white in this position? If I give you 20 seconds starting from now. Okay. Okay, white really wants to get something going here, an attack. He just plays bishop takes f5, and it's not entirely clear cut though. Knight takes f5, he plays the check. Now of course if black plays this he gets mated, so he doesn't want to do that. He has to bring the king out. And the interesting thing for me here about this game, well, you know, white's back row is weak here, so he can't really take this rook. So he plays check, and now interesting with the king on f6, this is really quite interesting. So white has to really go back to defend his own back row. So rook e1, so he's a piece down, but the king's kind of exposed on f6, and the rook's hanging at the moment as well. So queen g8 at least protects the rook. But this is really interesting. because this control of the E file is useful and E6 is useful potentially. We see G4. So what does that knight want to do here? Well, it's a bit troublesome already, because we don't really want to move the knight. We might end up losing the queen. For example, if knight h6, or even worse, could we try and just win the queen here? I think I see a move which, well, there are moves which look dangerous here. For example, I mean, even this looks dangerous because of the check. No, king f5, maybe not, maybe not. Maybe just h4 or something. It starts to look dangerous anyway. So black decided not to move the knight. He played actually g6. But interestingly, white play. Guess what white plays? Now, if he takes here, he's opening up the queen against his king. So can you guess what white played in this position? If I give you 20 seconds starting from now. So white play. Okay, he played f4. I think that's a really cool move. Just threatening g5, checkmating. So black plays h6, and again the threat of g5 is renewed with h4, threatening g5, just mating. And black now goes in a desperate mode. He plays queen f7, and of course the rook is hanging weakness of the last move. Queen takes c8, and now he resigns. So there was a bit of very interesting bit of calculation here. If we go back to the critical position, where this move f5, you know, just slight coordination on e8. Here, this knight's dragged away from e8. So with bishop takes f5, isn't that cruel? Bishop takes f5. Even with the back row, still quite dangerous, it seems. But I haven't engine checked it. I mean, it looks pretty sound anyway, intuitively. And okay, now an even crazier tactical game to finish off with. Mamdaryov against Sami Shoko. So this guy is 2775. Mamdaryov against Shoko is 2489. So d4. Knight f6, knight f3, c5, d5, b5. Mamdaryov playing bishop g5 here. Knight e4. And this gets a bit crazy. h4. g6. Bishop goes to f4. Bishop g7, c3. Bishop b7. h5. So it looks like a really creative opening position. How many people have this knowledge of this position theoretically? I would expect none of you have seen this position ever before. Is that correct? I wouldn't have. I mean, it looks a bit unusual, doesn't it? And we're only at move 8. So anyway, black plays e6. Okay, so d takes e6, d takes e6, queens come off, knight bd2, knight takes, and the nifty castling queenside, not recapturing immediately, knight c6, knight takes d2, and now there's an idea of check and to take on c5. This c5 is an issue already. King e7, knight e4, and again we see c5 an issue. Also the bishop can come to d6. So these need to be stopped, these threats. So knight e5 attacks the knight on e4 and seems to provoke it now to take on c5, which it does. So where is black's compensation? Bishop d5 attacking a2. e4, and here we see actually the bishop not taking on a2, but you know, because b5 maybe is on, he just protects there. So white to pawn up, bishop e2, a5. Black's trying to drum something up. Check with bishop g5, f6, bishop goes back. Now threatening to horrendously double the pawns here. The knight drops back. Bishop g4, now threatening e6. What to do about e6? Okay, black decides to play e5, and now the bishop drops back. So quite a lot of probing going on in this game. But it seems here that white's now got access to d7 with 3 pieces looking at d7. And black's next move seems to betray being a bit concerned about d7, rook a7. We see h6, the bishop dropping back to f8, being squeezed there. And now the invasive knight e6. Okay, which does actually tempt black to consider taking this pawn. So we see bishop takes h6. And what is going on here? What indeed is going on here? Bishop takes h6, knight takes, rook takes. So black's tactical basis for this is to try and regain the piece here with this next move, which is bishop d7. So we've got this pin against the g4 bishop. So what to do about this pin? And someone on chessgames.com said Mamedov might be better than Nakamura at tactics. Can you guess what this next move is if I give you 20 seconds starting from now? So white to play. What did he play in this position? Ah, I see. This is tricky. No one's getting it. No one's getting it. Ah, it's a really cool one. Okay, maybe someone got it. Pat MC, well done. On stream, well done. I think one or two of you have now got it. Knight f8. So one point is, well, if the king takes, then we just take on d7. Another point is, if the rook takes, then we just take on h7, and we're winning d7. But there's an even niftier idea now coming up, which is the game continuation. Bishop takes g4. We have knight takes g6 check, which is really horrible for black. If he did take here, rook takes h7, bishop takes, we just play check here, and with the exchange up. So this is really horrible, this knight takes g6. So black tries king e6. And now white doesn't take the rook, he plays oh okay, the last move of the game actually. So what do you think white plays in this position? Or should I just say, I think he's winning whatever he does. In fact, it looks pretty hopeless for black. He just plays f3, but it looks hopeless anyway for black here after knight takes h8. It does look like a piece up. It doesn't really matter what white plays. He just played f3 and black resigned. So that went badly wrong. So black resigned after f3. It's very chaotic games. I think my favourite must be my two favourites for me. If you want to review them on YouTube later, look out for them. It's the Adams game, of course, and the Shirov game, I think. So I hope you enjoyed tonight. I'll be putting it on YouTube. Okay. So comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much. So see you next week.